I don't like my hair. Let me just fix it a little bit. I think that's better. All right, whatever. Today we are mixing. Today we're talking about how to make the horns sound more aggressive. Epic, cinematic, aggressive, elevated. Just freaking awesome.
Awesome.
So, 3 things. So this is what we're talking about. So the title says how to make the horns sound aggressive with just one plugin. And that plugin is EQ. We're just gonna tweak 3 frequencies and we're gonna start with 300. I'm gonna solo the horns so we can focus on them. This is Air EQ from Eosis. Great EQ. I like it a lot, I use it a lot, but you don't have to use this one if you don't have it. I like it because it gives me a lot of control and sounds very musical. But you can use any other EQ. FabFilter Pro Q3, or the EQ that comes with Cubase or Logic. It's gonna sound 99.99% the same, so don't stress out. Alright, so the most important band for the aggressiveness is going to be this one here. But we're gonna start with this one, which is about 300, as you can see. And so what's gonna happen is that we're gonna get rid of a little bit of that muddiness that's typical of the upper area of the low range. And it actually, the 300 cycles here for the horns is actually masking a little bit of the, you know, the higher frequencies of the horns sound. And by cutting that area a little bit, the horns are going to sound, we're gonna gain clarity and definition. That was a solid line. All right, let's continue. Without, with, without, with. One more time, without. I'm gonna exaggerate this a little bit more so the difference is more obvious. I was cutting just like 1.5 dB, something subtle. I'm gonna cut like more like 3.3. So without, with, without. Big difference and such a big change. Now you gotta be careful. We're not gonna cut 4 dBs like I did at the end, because otherwise we're also losing part of what makes the horns sound like horns. We are taking away part of its sound. So something subtle. We're gonna cut 1, 2, or max 3 dBs. That's it. I almost cut it. So what you wanna do is carving out some space in this range, in these frequencies, to avoid muddiness. If you've got a sound or an instrument that sounds muffled, that's what you wanna do. Come here, because this area sometimes is masking some of the higher frequencies. So before bringing up those high frequencies, you may wanna, again, carve out some space around this area. Can you imagine having a conversation with a composer friend of yours? Or competition even, and you start talking like this? All of a sudden, it sounds like you know what you're talking about. That's the most important part. I'm just kidding, obviously. All right, the next thing is going to be 3.8K or 3,000 or 4,000, around that range. Let's say 3.5 kilohertz. We're gonna bring this up a little bit. That is what's gonna make the horns sound more aggressive, but I've got more words for you. That is what's gonna bring up the nastiness.
Nasty.
Gonna make them sound more aggressive, sonically speaking. And this is what we've got right here. Let's hear the before and after, without, after, before, after. More exaggerated so we can hear the obvious difference. After. Whoa! One more time, and now I'm gonna bring it up so you can hear how it affects the sound. feels like you can hear that brass vibrating. It's awesome. Now again, keep it subtle. Don't get too excited, right? Or that's what's happening. See, the door is opening. I'll talk about this guy in the next video. What I wanted to say is that don't get too excited, like, oh, it sounds great, and then you bring it up, because just your threshold is 3 dBs. You can bring it up 3 dBs, you can cut 3 dBs, no more, unless it's a very specific, you've got a very specific reason to do so. With orchestral instruments, with synths and all that, you can be more aggressive. With orchestral instruments, keep it subtle, and especially when you're bringing up, when you're adding frequencies, you'll start with 1 dBs, 2 dBs, you'll start hearing the difference, and all of a sudden, the ear just auto-adjusts, and so you're gonna get used to the sound, and it doesn't feel like a difference anymore. You're gonna bring it up, we're gonna hear a difference again, compared to the last point where your ear settled, and then you're gonna bring up. Better way of doing this is bring it up a little bit, then bypass and see the difference between how it sounded originally and how it sounds now. This is how it's done actually when you are adjusting a compressor or reverb or EQ or volume, whatever it is. When you are balancing, panning, usually the way it's done is you're gonna go for the extremes. So you're gonna, for example, if it's EQ and you are EQing, you bring up like 3.8K and just to add a little bit of nastiness, but you don't want to overdo it. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna turn that knob till and you'll try to find the max point. You're gonna go back and forth a little bit just for your ear to get used to the subtle difference. And you're gonna go like, okay, from 0 to 4, from 0 to 4, from 0 to 4, and it's like, okay, cool, I can hear the difference. And that's it's gonna set the range for your ear. And then within that range, then bring it down till it is subtle but meaningful, where you can hear a difference, but it's not too much. I'll do a separate video about this, but let's continue now. The reason why the door was opening earlier, I didn't explain, is because Ali and the kids went to Target to buy something, I don't know, they went to buy something, and now they're back. All right, so the third thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna bring up a little bit of the 8.5K. So 8500. This is for, you like this word, to add a little bit of edge to the sound, to make it sound a little bit more edgy. So before, after, before, one more time, before. See when I activate it, how it adds a little bit of edge in that upper range. Again. This one's awesome because the other one, the 3.8K or that range, clearly added nastiness. It sort of like enhanced a little bit of a brassy sound, right? But this one is kind of like takes that quality and adds a little bit of edge to that. It's kind of like enhances, adding a little bit of brightness and clarity to that nastiness quality of the brass sound. Are you still with me? All right. In context, without, with, and now without stopping the playback, without. One more time, now I'm gonna start activate it and then I'll deactivate it. Solo one more time, without, with. And in context again, it is active at the moment. So in conclusion, we cut a little bit at around 300 cycles to get rid of the muddiness, which is typical in that range, in that area, between 200 to 500 cycles. Not always, but it's common. When you've got a sound that, or an instrument that sounds muffled, that's where you wanna look for that range of frequencies and carve out a little bit in that area. Then we cut a little bit at around 3.8, 3800 for adding a little bit of that nastiness and aggression to the sound. And finally, we added a little bit at 8.5K for adding a little bit of edge. Now, again, I think I said this already, but don't copy the exact numbers. It makes no sense. That is what worked for me for that specific sample, for that specific library, but don't copy the exact number. Just understand what, for horns in general, usually, what those three ranges are going to do to the sound. And so once you understand this, once you memorize this, depending on what you need, then you know where to look for. But also understand that this works for this specific style. This is sort of like epic action cue, and that's what I needed for horns to sound a little bit more edgy, more aggressive, a little bit nastier. That's what I needed. I probably wouldn't EQ these horns at all if it would have been a different style of music. So again, not because you are working with horns, you have to do any of this. But if you need to make them sound more aggressive and they sound a little bit muffled, maybe this is helpful. All right, that's it. End of the video. Subscribe. Subscribe. Why? Because it boosts my ego, and that is important. Other than that, no, yeah, subscribe. I'll see you tomorrow.